Ever since the beginning of time, we have always wondered if there is life after death, life beyond the grave. The stories that I'm about to share with you today are considered by many to be some of the best proof that we do live on. Sometimes, when a loved one dies, they reach out to us to let us know that they are okay. But when a person is murdered and their killer roams free, the dead will do whatever they can to let their loved ones know exactly what happened to them. And this is what we're going to talk about today. Some of the best documented cases where the dead have seemed to rise right out of their graves to contact the living. These spirits will not rest until the world knows who it was that committed these unspeakable crimes. February 21st, 1977, a Filipino nurse named Teresa Basa was tragically stabbed to death in her apartment. She lived in Evanston, Illinois. Forensic evidence suggested that Basa lured a man into her apartment, and this man choked her, then stripped her, then started to stab her between the ribs multiple times. The force of these stab wounds was so strong that the knife went completely through her body. Then the murderer put a mattress over Basa's corpse and set it on fire, hoping that he could hide the evidence. A couple of days after the murder, one of Basa's co-workers at the Edgewater Hospital told a fellow co-worker that Basa must be turning over in her grave. It's too bad that she can't just rise from the dead and tell the police who committed this unspeakable crime. One of Basa's friends, Remy Chua, said that Basa could contact me in a dream and tell me, "I am not afraid." Later that same day, Remy Chua was taking a nap in the locker room after a very long shift. When she woke up, she saw Basa standing right in front of her. Remy started screaming her head off and she ran away as fast as she could. After this terrifying paranormal encounter, Remy started having very vivid dreams. And these dreams were about Basa's murder. Remy was convinced that these were not dreams at all, that these were actual events that she was seeing. After weeks of these visions, she knew everything about Basa's death, but she was too afraid to go to the police. Then, one night Remy heard Basa's voice, and Basa told her to call the police. Even Remy's husband, who was lying next to her at the time, heard this voice. But they both were too afraid, and they decided to do nothing. After this spine-chilling encounter, Remy stopped having these dreams, and she hoped that finally this whole nightmare was over. But it wasn't. A couple of weeks later, Basa's spirit returned and told Remy the murderer's name, Alan. Finally, Remy decided that this was never going to stop until the murderer was in jail. So Remy went to the police and told them everything. The police thought that this woman was crazy, but thankfully, the police did check up on this. The police went to go talk to the suspect, but they just didn't have any actual, real evidence. But when the police talked to the suspect's girlfriend, they finally got a lead that came from beyond the grave. In Remy's dreams, she saw the murderer take Basa's jewelry, and Remy told the police that Alan, the murderer, took Basa's jewelry. When the police questioned Alan's girlfriend, they asked her if Alan had given her any jewelry recently, and the girlfriend said yes, and she told the police a beautiful antique ring. After seeing this ring, the cops called Basa's family to see if they could identify this ring. The family told the police that this was indeed Basa's ring. Now the police had the evidence they needed, and they raided Alan's house. During the raid, the police found more of Basa's jewelry. So the cops took Alan in for questioning, and Alan eventually confessed to the murder, making this case some great proof of life beyond the grave, as there is just no way Remy Chua could know these things. January 1897. A blacksmith sent his neighbor's young boy to see if a woman named Elva Easter, who was pregnant at the time, needed anything from the market. When the boy walked in the house, he found Elva's dead body lying on the floor. The boy ran to his mother and told her that Elva was dead. The coroner officially stated that the cause of death was everlasting faint. Then the coroner changed it to complications from pregnancy. A couple of weeks later, Elva's mother started having very bizarre and very vivid dreams. She knew that her daughter was appearing to her in her dreams. Elva's mother said that her daughter told her from beyond the grave that her husband Sue had started to become very abusive towards her. One night, he was so angry at Elva because she didn't cook him any meat for dinner, and in a fit of rage, he started to choke Elva. He was choking her with so much force that he broke her neck. Elva's mother knew that her daughter was communicating with her, and she went to the local prosecutor. She spent the whole afternoon at his office trying to get the prosecutor to reopen the case. Elva's mother was so persistent and convincing that the prosecutor had no choice. He reopened the case. Elva's mother told the prosecutor that Sue broke her daughter's neck in a fit of rage. So Preston, the prosecutor, demanded a complete autopsy on Elva's corpse. A few days later, the body was exhumed, despite the husband's objections, and after carefully examining the body, they found out that Elva's mother was right. Elva Easter died by a broken neck. It was clear that Elva's death was not natural, but there was still no real evidence pointing to Sue. But Sue had been acting very strange after Elva's death. After a very large investigation, the investigators uncovered that Sue was married twice before. One of Sue's previous wives also mysteriously died, and Sue's other ex told the investigators that Sue used to beat her. She got a divorce as she knew that Sue would eventually kill her if she stayed with him. After the end of a very long trial, the jury had no doubts. Sue was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Now, if it wasn't for Elva's mother's dreams, nobody would never have uncovered that Sue was a murderer, and he probably would have killed again. The Red Barn murder is one of the most famous cases in regards to the dead communicating with the living. This tragic story begins in Suffolk, England in 1827. A young woman named Maria Martine was shot dead by her lover, William Corder. The two had arranged to meet at the Red Barn, and Maria was never heard from again. The killer, William Corder, would send messages to Maria's family telling them that she was in good health and they were both very happy. But Maria's family knew something was wrong. They suspected the worst, and that's when Maria contacted her stepmother in her dreams. Maria told her stepmother that William murdered her and that her body was in the Red Barn, buried in a sack in one of the grain storage bins. Maria's stepmother convinced her husband to go to the Red Barn and dig in the grain storage bins. He did as his wife instructed, and he fell to the ground crying as he did find his daughter's remains. William Corder was found guilty on August 11, 1828. He was taken to the gallows and he was hung for his crimes. Before Williams walked the gallows, he finally confessed to murdering Maria, as Williams wanted a clean slate before he died. Now, this is one of the best documented cases of the dead communicating with the living, as there is just no way Maria's stepmother could know the exact location of Maria's body. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.